That man put his hands on me, I would have immediately swung on him. Immediately.
When Stephen A. Smith declared that he'd swing on LeBron James if provoked, the sports world erupted. It wasn't the usual fiery monologue people tune in for. It sounded far more personal. For 2 decades, Stephen A. has thrived on delivering dramatic, controversial takes. But this time, the line between commentary and confrontation blurred. Suddenly, the biggest pundit in NBA media found himself at the heart of a feud with one of basketball's greatest icons. Fans wondered how things had escalated so quickly and why. What started as a casual throwaway line about throwing hands soon became the tip of an iceberg that had been forming for years. Yet, this tension wasn't born overnight. It reflected a growing disconnect between Stephen A.'s high-profile role on television and the expectation that he'd focus on insightful analysis, and the tabloid-style drama that so often grabs headlines. In sports media, personalities fight for attention by any means possible, even if it means stepping outside the boundaries of respectful critique. For LeBron James, however, this latest flare-up wasn't merely another headline. It was a direct jab, a public affront to both his legacy and his family. To understand why LeBron finally felt compelled to respond so openly, we have to look back at how these two towering figures in basketball culture have circled each other for decades, sometimes praising, sometimes criticizing, but never at odds quite like this. Long before LeBron James played his first official NBA game, Stephen A. Smith was singing his praises on air. He spoke about a high school phenom who possessed the vision of Magic Johnson and the explosive athleticism of Michael Jordan, a once-in-a-lifetime player destined to change the sport. At that point, Stephen A. looked like one of LeBron's loudest cheerleaders, always ready to proclaim his potential greatness. Yet, as soon as LeBron entered the league, the tone of coverage shifted. The same platform that once celebrated his upside became a critical, omnipresent microscope, picking apart every decision, missed shot, or perceived shortcoming. Stephen A. Smith, unlike some commentators who fade into the background, grew into a larger-than-life figure, a household name recognized beyond sports circles. His opinions could sway popular narratives. Whether praising a rookie's hustle or condemning a veteran's mistakes, Stephen A. had a unique skill for drawing people in with his theatrical style. Over time, though, he noticed that nothing drove ratings quite like LeBron James. Whether it was the Chosen One hype, the move to Miami, the championship runs, or the late career chase for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's scoring record, LeBron's name brought instant traction. The well of LeBron-focused stories seemed endless, and Stephen A. kept dipping into it. Viewers loved it, hated it, or felt a little of both, but they always tuned in to see what might come out of Stephen A.'s mouth next. Over years of commentary, cracks started to form in the veneer of respect between them. While LeBron quietly endured wave after wave of criticism regarding his teams, his business ventures, and even his personal choices, Stephen A. found new angles to explore. Some purely basketball related, others verging on the personal. Few topics were off limits in these debates, which sometimes veered into sensationalism. Yet, for all the scrutiny, LeBron's on-court performances often forced even the harshest pundits to give him credit. When he delivered championships to Cleveland and Los Angeles, Stephen A. had moments of humble admiration. Still, each sign of mutual respect was quickly followed by another round of drama. It was as if the cycle fed on itself: scrutiny, success, grudging respect, and then fresh criticism. All it took was one stray remark for everything to boil over. In a segment that began as routine NBA chatter, Stephen A. casually mentioned that if LeBron James ever put his hands on him, he'd swing on him immediately. It was the kind of statement typical of barbershop banter, bravado with little chance of reality, but it struck a nerve. LeBron, known for staying measured despite constant media attention, didn't laugh it off. Instead, the remark festered, especially because of another disturbing trend: personal attacks on LeBron's family, specifically his son, Bronny James. In LeBron's mind, Stephen A. had crossed a line. The conversation had drifted away from critiques of a basketball legend and moved into personal territory. Family has always been a core pillar for LeBron. He often speaks about protecting the people he loves and providing a better life for them than he had growing up. The mention of Bronny in heated debates or insinuations that LeBron's parenting deserved ridicule cut far deeper than a random quip about his jump shot. When Stephen A.'s commentary started veering toward that domain, hinting at Bronny's future and whether he deserved the hype, it felt like an invasion of privacy. For years, LeBron had heard countless critiques, but when the barbs reached his family, his stance changed. Adding fuel to the fire was how Stephen A. casually tossed out the suggestion of physical confrontation, though he couched it in hypothetical language. If he put his hands on me, I'd swing. The tone registered as an outright challenge. For someone with LeBron's stature, who values professionalism, hearing a top commentator even joke about violence was jarring. It wasn't just that the line was hyperbolic, it was the underlying disrespect, the implication that a player who'd shown no inclination toward off-court fights might be prone to one, prompting Stephen A to respond in kind. All of a sudden, the story was no longer about scoring titles, playoff runs, or contract extensions. It was about two titans of the NBA ecosystem trading personal jabs. Under normal circumstances, LeBron James treats media chatter like background noise. He's endured everything from accusations that he's overshadowed other stars, to claims that his championships are tainted by forming super teams. Yet through it all, he cultivated a reputation for speaking primarily through his on-court performance. This time, though, was different. He couldn't simply ignore the remarks when they directly targeted his household. In an unfiltered interview with Pat McAfee, a platform known for giving athletes the freedom to speak openly, LeBron finally let people see his frustration. He pointed out the difference between valid sports criticism and personal attacks. In his eyes, one is fair game, the other is absolutely not. During the interview, LeBron explained that he's always welcomed strong opinions about his game, debating who's the best player, dissecting stats, even calling out poor shooting nights. These are all part of professional sports. It's what keeps fans engaged. But once critics dive into family matters or imply that Bronny is being offered undue attention because of his father, that's when LeBron's protective instincts ignite. He detailed how personal jabs like that can harm not just him, but his kids, who are still navigating their own paths. This raw honesty made many realize that star athletes, for all their fame and wealth, remain deeply vulnerable when it comes to family. Of course, LeBron's candid remarks about Stephen A. Smith immediately went viral, driving another tsunami of media coverage. The cycle repeated itself. Stephen A. responded, perhaps doubling down, and Twitter exploded with a fresh wave of speculation. Yet, in many ways, LeBron's interview was less about feeding the feud and more about setting boundaries. He wasn't demanding immunity from criticism, he was calling for civility, especially where families are concerned. That distinction got lost in the media circus, where every snippet of his comments turned into fodder for more debate. But for viewers willing to parse the details, it was clear that this wasn't about a commentator's right to speak out. It was about basic respect. Stephen A. Smith, known for his larger-than-life presence and quick, dramatic retorts, saw an opportunity to keep the story swirling. Instead of backing down, issuing a mild apology, or clarifying his remarks about physical confrontation, he chose to lean in. He insisted that if LeBron never stepped out of line, there wouldn't be a need to talk about such matters, subtly placing the onus back on the athlete. If something physical ever did happen, though the odds of that are astronomically low, Stephen A. maintained he wouldn't hesitate to defend himself. By shifting the responsibility back onto LeBron, Stephen A. also deflected attention from his role in escalating the feud. It was a classic tactic: keep the pot boiling and ensure the story remains front and center. Even as some criticized him for stoking unnecessary drama, others viewed his stance as entertaining or refreshingly honest. In the echo chamber of sports media, controversy sells. People with no interest in the day's box scores suddenly tuned in to see Stephen A. declare that if LeBron dared to lay a hand on him, there'd be consequences. As for whether it was a good look for a leading commentator to make such statements, opinions were split. Some felt that Stephen A. had crossed a professional boundary. Others argued that he had every right to call out perceived intimidation. What Stephen A. didn't address in depth was how he'd strayed from actual basketball analysis. Fans eager for deeper discussions on rising stars like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Oklahoma City Thunder's surprising performances, or other fascinating league developments found themselves frustrated. They felt overshadowed by talk show theatrics. Meanwhile, the real reason many turned on their TVs, insights into the game they love, took a back seat. Some asked, if Stephen A. is the top NBA voice, shouldn't he be using that platform to celebrate emerging talent, dissect strategies, and predict playoff outcomes? Instead, viewers got more drama, culminating in back-and-forth remarks about who might swing on whom. The entire episode serves as a revealing snapshot of modern sports media, where viral soundbites overshadow thorough analysis, and sensational comments gain more traction than in-depth discussions of player development or team chemistry. Stephen A. Smith is hardly the only figure to benefit from this model. Various shows thrive on conflicts between commentators, or between a commentator and an athlete, because it generates clicks and endless social media engagement. The line between thoughtful debate and personal attacks can blur quickly. Once that boundary erodes, the conversation can devolve into empty spectacle. For players like LeBron James, this shift in coverage might feel exhausting. While he's used to the spotlight, it's disheartening when meaningful stories, like how the Detroit Pistons might be turning their franchise around, or how top draft picks are stepping into bigger roles, fall by the wayside. By pivoting to personal disputes, the media not only shortchanges fans looking for substantial discussion, but also fuels a cycle of negativity that can overshadow actual accomplishments. The audience, meanwhile, has been split into multiple camps. One group cheers on Stephen A. Smith, enjoying the dramatic flair and unfiltered commentary. They tune in daily for the soap opera-like narrative. Another group aligns with LeBron, tired of sensationalism and longing for coverage that focuses on the essence of the game. For a third segment, the spectacle itself has become the main draw, with the actual basketball almost an afterthought. The question is whether this trend will keep ballooning until it pops, or if there's a chance for sports media to course correct and bring the focus back to the court. Just when things seemed at a boiling point, LeBron dropped another firebrand comment during his McAfee interview. The notion that Giannis could score 250 points in a 1970s game if he really wanted to. It was clearly hyperbole, a way for LeBron to stress how freakishly dominant Giannis's modern skill set and athleticism might appear in an older, less specialized era. But the remark immediately set off a new round of commentary. Stephen A. Smith and others pounced on it, framing it as disrespectful to legends of the past. How dare he suggest that Hall of Famers like Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Wilt Chamberlain weren't just as formidable in their time? Yet LeBron wasn't slamming the 70s or belittling the legends who paved the way. His main point was that era comparisons can be misleading, especially when some retired players and pundits incessantly claim the modern NBA is soft. LeBron argued that great players are great for a reason. They would adapt and thrive in any generation. Giannis's unique combination of size, speed, and skill set is something that would have broken boundaries in any decade. He was countering the narrative that newer players are coddled by the current rules, or that older players were so much tougher. Stephen A. Smith, however, turned the spotlight on what he saw as LeBron's disrespect. He called out the possibility that players like Kendrick Perkins would have been unstoppable in the older, more physical style of the game, an argument that some found laughable given Perkins' limited scoring ability. The entire conversation highlighted a glaring contradiction. On one hand, Stephen A. champions old-school physicality and defends past legends. On the other hand, he openly ridicules today's stars for softness, while praising some of his modern contemporaries who might not actually flourish in a truly bruising era. The debate exemplified how easy it is for commentators to twist words, fueling the storyline that today's athletes lack grit, or that yesteryear's greats were unstoppable giants, ignoring the complexity of how skills, rules, and training methods evolve over time. The feud between Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James highlights a deeper issue within modern sports media, the growing preference for drama over substance. While Stephen A. thrives on controversy to stay relevant and fuel engagement, LeBron's pushback, especially when family is involved, marks a shift in how athletes respond to personal attacks disguised as commentary. His decision to speak out could encourage other stars to set firmer boundaries with the media. Ultimately, this clash is more than just a headline. It's a reflection of a media landscape that often prioritizes viral sound bites over real basketball stories. As the cycle of confrontations and hot takes continues, it raises the question, will authentic, thoughtful discussions about the game ever reclaim the spotlight, or has sensationalism become the new norm? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Baller Briefs for the latest news in basketball.